Recording in progress.
Ron, can we begin with housekeeping comments, please?
Thank you for participating in today's meeting. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room. And please silence all devices. Click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you are in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby. For meetings and other locations, please complete a blue speaker card and provide it to a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items. Times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. More time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on making public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-3247. That's 909-396-3247. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
Gracias por participar en la reunión de hoy. Si asiste en persona, favor de no conectarse a la conferencia telefónica o Zoom mientras esté en el auditorio y silencie todos sus dispositivos. Haga clic en el icono de globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla para seleccionar inglés o español. Se recibirán comentarios públicos después de cada punto de la agenda. Si está en el auditorio y desea comentar, utilice los iPads ubicados en el vestíbulo. Para reuniones en otros sitios, complete una tarjeta azul para su comentario y entréguela a un empleado de South Coast AQMD. Los comentarios serán limitados a un total de 3 minutos o menos para cada punto de la agenda. El tiempo límite puede ser reducido para asegurar que se puedan escuchar todos los comentarios. Se mostrará un temporizador de cuenta regresiva en la pantalla para cada comentario público. Se asignará más tiempo para traducción al español no simultáneo. Si tiene preguntas o problemas sobre cómo hacer un comentario público, llame al asesor público al 909-396-3247. Eso es 909-396-3247. Respete el tiempo límite y favor de tratar a los demás con cortesía, civilidad y respeto. De lo contrario, es posible que se silencie el micrófono o que sea retirado de la reunión. Tenga en cuenta que esta reunión está siendo grabada. Al participar, usted autoriza la grabación del contenido audiovisual presentado durante el evento en vivo y acepta el uso posterior de la grabación en el dominio público por parte de South Coast AQMD.
We have,
Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, February 2nd. I'll call this meeting to order, the South Coast Air Quality Management District, Friday, February 2nd, 2024. May we please take the roll?
Mayor Locke Dawson. Here. Supervisor Doe is absent. Supervisor Hagman, absent. Board Member Krakoff,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McCallan,
Here.
Supervisor Mitchell,
Here.
Board Member Padilla Campos,
Here.
Supervisor Perez,
Here.
Councilmember Rahman is absent. Councilmember Rodriguez, absent. Mayor Solache,
Present.
Vice Chair Caccioti,
Here.
and Chair Delgado,
Yeah.
absent.
We have a quorum, and I'll ask Board Member Padilla Campos to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Board Member. Board members, any opening comments? Supervisor Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair. You have set an example for all of us to represent AQMD and the principles and the work that we do here. So I wanted you in particular to see how I'm trying to live up to the expectation and the standard. And so we've got a couple of pictures here. I was proud to represent AQMD at an amazing launch in Los Angeles. Climate is King. It's going to be a year-long effort to really focus on organizing underrepresented communities, primarily the African-American community, in understanding the impact climate change has on our community. And so I was proud to stand with representatives from Metro and DWP and other organizations launching this year-long public relations outreach and organizing effort. It was launched on Dr. King's birthday, and the tagline is "Climate is King," and I was proud to represent AQMD. I think the other image you're about to see is, again, following your lead in trying to think and live differently with regard to climate. I was privileged to be, what do you call it when you're in the parade? You're the Grand Marshal. I don't know why that word always escapes me. I want to say like Grandmaster Flash, but that's not who I was.
That was a good way to highlight it, Supervisor.
Right, Grandmaster Flash. Half of the room is too young to even know what I'm talking about. As I tell my 23-year-old, Google it, Grandmaster Flash, then you'll know how old I am. So I was the Grand Marshal of the 39th Annual Kingdom Day Parade that goes through my district in South Los Angeles, and we decided that we would ride our bikes. The organizer of the Kingdom Day Parade was quite upset with me. They have images of what they think the Grand Marshal should do. But I was joined by about 100 cyclists, primarily who are in cycling, environmental justice and cycling clubs in South Los Angeles. Those are the green shirts. And we rode the parade route. And we talked about why we were riding, that it was about clean air and cleaning up our environment. And so there I am in the Kingdom Day Parade.
He has a very special guest with him.
Yeah, there's a lot of action right now. I'm with the Grand Marshal, Holly Mitchell. I'm trying to keep up with you, Supervisor. Tell me how you're doing here. We can keep riding.
Doing great. It's wonderful to be the Grand Marshal for the 39th Annual Kingdom Day Parade. And we're riding our bikes because Dr. King talked about health equity for the Black community. And he also talked about climate change before we knew about it. So climate is king. So we're saying we want cleaner air in South LA. So we're going to ride our bikes to help contribute.
Can you tell our viewers how you incorporate the work of Dr. King every single day to what you do for the county?
I really do. You know, Dr. King, the last campaign he worked on was the Poor People's Campaign. And one of the tenets was guaranteed basic income. And I was proud to carry the motion to create the largest guaranteed basic income program in the country in honor of Dr. King's legacy.
Well, let's let you go right ahead. We don't want to hold up the parade. We'll send it back to you, Mark and Rachel.
So I would like to suggest that Mr. Salate commit to, he's going to ride a bike the way that he's in. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Accepted.
Thank you, Board Member Mitchell. Great presentation. Any other board members, any comments? Looking down there. Paul, I have just a few. This was Senator Anthony Portantino, Chair of the Budget Committee in the Senate, at his every New Year event in Glendale with myself and Councilmember Braun from South Pasadena. Yes, next slide. This was after a Public Safety Commission meeting in South Pasadena. We got delivery of our first patrol Tesla Model Y vehicle, and it's been in operation now for about 3 weeks. In the front on the left, that's the Tesla Model 3, our detective vehicles. Got 2 or 3 patrol vehicles have been delivered, upfitted by Unplugged out by SpaceX. All of our detective vehicles have been there. So we should get full delivery of our 10 patrol vehicles in the next month or so. All electric out there, the public loves it. They charge at the local charging station. People come up, ask the cops the questions. Next. This was a Walnut City Council meeting I attended a few weeks ago. I just took a picture of the mayor and council members and staff. Next. This was a meeting at the LA County Metro Gold Line Foothill Association. Back one. Go back to that last one. This is the Gold Line, which is an extension of the Gold Line where it ends right now at Azusa Pacific University and Citrus College. I sit on that board, but that's on the left is Ed Reese, former mayor, now councilman, Claremont. And the next extension will go to Glendora, then cross the 210 under the 57 in beautiful downtown San Dimas, then to downtown Laverne. And right now it'll end at Pomona North Station, which is a station, Larry, with Metrolink. We're going to share a station right there with Metrolink. And it's about 85% done. We'll finish construction this December, transfer it over to Metro. And Metro Holly will have a few months for pre-ridership to get it ready to go. So that's exciting. And Metro's already submitted, thank you, Holly, a proposal to the state to fund it from the next stage to Claremont and into Montclair to San Bernardino County. So light rail will be getting out there, improving air quality next. On the left, this is a presentation on the right at Holy Family Catholic Church in South Pasadena. We're talking about our lawn and garden exchange program and center program. And on the right is Dan Mabe with American Green Zone Alliance. We presented trying to get the church to follow what the Pope is talking about, Laudate Diem, care of our planet, protecting our Mother Earth. So I had a great presentation there. And I think that's it, Paul. Thank you guys very much. Board members, any more comments on that? Great, we'll move on.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
just may add, you mentioned the extension of the line, just want to make sure everybody knows and read it into the record that February 3rd and 4th is Equity Day for Metro. February 4th is Rosa Parks' birthday. And so you can ride Metro free Saturday and Sunday this weekend in honor of Rosa Parks' birthday. So it's Equity Day in Metro. Thank you.
Supervisor, is it all buses and trains too free?
I'm going to say yes. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure it is. If it's not, I will correct myself before the end of the meeting, but I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it's both buses and trains.
Great, thanks so much.
If I might, Metrolink will have free on the 4th. I think all of the transit agencies in the counties will have free transportation
Great.
on the 4th.
That's this Sunday. That today's the second Sunday. Great. Thank you, Larry. Okay, let's move on. Next is the public comment portion of the agenda. And I know we have a lot of, looking at a lot of public comments. Wayne, go ahead. Did you want to make any comments?
Yes, thank you. Actually, I have a number of comments today, so I apologize in advance. But first, just wanted to discuss briefly what the South Coast AQMD did with regards to honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Day. The board has asked this organization to be more involved within the community. One of the things that we were able to do this past Saturday was to participate in 2 home buildings, construction of 2 homes in the AB 617 community of San Bernardino and Muscoy. And these are some of the pictures of our staff that was there. And as you can tell, it was a good time had by all. And I think the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King certainly lives on in our staff and what we're trying to do. The other thing that I wanted to go on to the next slide is to talk about the student internship program. I know this is one of the favorite programs of the governing board. This program is now open for recruitment. Just a couple of items with regards to that recruitment. The required elements are such that the students that enroll must be in either a 2 or 4 year college. They must be at least 18 years of age, and they can apply on our website through Monday, March 8th. And then we'll be coming to you with applications for your selection. Also want to note that the governing board retreat has been scheduled for May 9th and 10th. That'll be out in Palm Desert, and we'll have more information to follow. And then the other issue, 2 other issues that I wanted to raise today, the US EPA published in the Federal Register its proposed action to disapprove our contingency measures for the 1997 ozone SIP. That was part of our 2016 AQMP submittal. And this is important because a disapproval will trigger a sanctions clock as well as a FIP clock. And short of litigation, these clocks can only be turned off with the submission and approval of a new plan by EPA. EPA is accepting public comments on its proposed action through March 4th, 2024. We will definitely be commenting on that, and we'll have further discussion on this matter in closed session. And then finally, just wanted to highlight that next week, Vice Chair Cacchiotti and Mayor McCallan and staff will be in DC. We will be joined by representatives of the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, including commission members. Also joining us will be PMSA, as well as the Sierra Club, ILWU, and Pacific Environment. And the whole focus is on advocating for additional resources for the South Coast region to address the air quality issues and the many challenges that we face. And I think EPA's proposed action really highlights the need for us to be in DC. And that concludes my comments. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Wayne. The chair is here to take over the meeting or public comment.
Thank you so much. My apologies for being late. All right, so that brings us to general public comment. We do have a lot of speakers signed up, so we're going to be using a 2-minute public comment period. If you need more, please just let us know. With that, we're going to start with those in the room. We have Bettina Sanchez. And the list is up there. If you see your name, please come forward.
Hello.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time. My name is Bettina Burley Sanchez, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Professional Employees Association here at South Coast as the president and lead negotiator for the association. I want to say thank you to you all for recently directing management's negotiating team to come and sit back down at the table with us. This week, we had 2 negotiating sessions, and we failed to come to an agreement. I'm here to talk to you today because the negotiators on the other side of the table told me to my face that they would not represent our needs to you for the retroactivity beginning for 2024. I truly believe that we were going to leave our session this week with both parties satisfied. After we expressed that we were agreeable to the salary increases offered to us in the presentation by management on Tuesday, full retroactivity to include all of 2024 health insurance increases and 2024 salary increases, a Me Too clause, and a salary study performed by a third-party firm. Why a third party? One reason is because the salaries comparison presented to us this week, the salaries compared our 2025 projected salaries with current 2023-24 salaries at other agencies. 3 things that will help us ensure that fair treatment and parity with other bargaining units here at the district. Retroactivity, a Me Too clause, and a third-party salary study. We've been doing this since May. It's heavy. My back hurts. My neck hurts. My feet hurt. But I'm in the office quite frequently, and I have people, PEA and non-PEA alike, holding me up, stopping me in the hall, telling me we're doing a good job, bolstering my confidence, reminding me to keep pushing because what we're asking here is good, it's right, and it's just. We need a Me Too clause, a salary study, and retroactivity. We've agreed on everything else. I'm prepared to sign today if we can get those 3 things into an agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Bettina. We have Sagar Patel, followed by Patricia Kwan. Patricia, if you could come up as well behind the current speaker. Thank you.
Sagar Patel, and I'm an air quality chemist and the secretary of the SCPEA. Like many Californians, I was not born in California. I moved here from the Midwest to work in the lab of the premier air quality agency in the nation. I feel that we are at risk of losing the ability to recruit and retain people like me in the future. With my allotted time, I want to just highlight 2 points: the negotiation schedule of the past year and our retroactive pay demands. First, we started negotiations in the summer with our first offer that included a salary proposal that would help us reach parity with other neighboring agencies so that we could recruit and retain staff. The district responded with their first offer, in my opinion, a lowball offer, and the district did not return to salaries again until 5 months later in December, just weeks before the contract expired. Why did they wait so long to offer us a deal other than to pressure us to accept a bad one? When our negotiation team voiced opposition to this offer, the district told us to take it to membership anyway. And with 97% turnout, the offer was handily voted down by a 73% majority of voters. If that isn't membership telling you what they want, what they need, then I don't know what is. Among other items, we're still fighting over retroactive pay, as Bettina mentioned, starting from January 1st. By excluding retroactive pay from their offer that was slow walk to us, I can only think that this choice was deliberate and punitive. We, the Professional Employees Association, are committed to advancing the agency's mission of cleaner air, and we are left wondering, why penalize us for striving for equity? I ask that you help us stop the bleed. Thank you for your time and consideration.
If Ronald can come up behind Patricia, please.
Yes, good morning. I'm Patricia Kwan. I'm a program supervisor in the Technology Demonstration Group, and I'm treasurer of the Professional Employees Association. I've been at the agency for over 21 years, and I will be retiring next month. There are 3 outstanding items to meet the board's direction from last month to maintain equity with the Teamsters and unrepresented employees in our agency. The first item is for reciprocity to the pay period encompassing January 1st, 2024. The second item is an independent salary study to serve as the basis for future contract negotiations to enable professional employees to have comparable salaries with other public agencies. The third item is a Me Too clause to ensure continued equity with the Teamsters. Ultimately, any contract package offered by management is subject to governing board approval. So at this point, we would greatly appreciate your support in signaling to management that equity on these 3 points is in the agency's best interest to bring these negotiations to a close. On a personal note, I have been privileged to take many technology demonstration projects to Technology Committee and ultimately the board for approval during my 21 years of service, and I am proud of my service to this agency. I think I speak for all of us in expressing that we look forward to getting back to why we are here, doing the work to fulfill the mission and goals of this agency. Thank you.
Thank you. If Kevin Katz could come up behind Ronald.
Hello, my name is Ronald Domholt, and I'm an engineer here at AQMD. And I'm also standing here with my union siblings to express my support for the actions that have been brought forth by Bettina and the entire board for the union. We look forward to the retro pay that has already been accounted for in the budget to January 1st. And from my own perspective, I have been requested to work harder, work faster, work better on my end, and that actions on my end have been performed. And I think that everything since the first of this year should be paid for in fairness as well. It should be rewarded. Pay withholding should not be punitive. On top of that, we must be brought comparable with other jobs. If you want to stop the bleeding, you first have to address the wound, and I don't think that is being currently met. I also agree with the Me Too for Teamsters and a salary study. Equitable treatment for all should be our goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian is after Kevin, if you could come up.
Good morning. Before I start, the chair mentioned that if we need more time, we could ask for it. Could I have like 2.5?
2.5 is fine.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Sorry, waiting for the timer. Thank you, whoever's doing that. Good morning, esteemed members of the governing board. My name is Kevin Katz. I am an assistant air quality engineer in the engineering and permitting division. I'm here to provide all of you with some hope for a change. I'll tell you, the only thing standing between us and an equitable deal are 3 common sense changes to the offer put forward by management this week. The first of these common sense changes is the inclusion of a salary study conducted by an independent third party in the provisions of the new contract. The governing board already established this type of study is critical for ensuring that this agency remains a competitive employer. To quote Dr. Eng, a member of the public who spoke at last month's meeting regarding the salary studies presented to the board, this is exactly the kind of stuff that you should be doing for all your professional staff. Secondly, it saddens me to say that the PEA members are still fighting for parity with the Teamsters. Their contract includes a Me Too clause, which protects them from being treated disparately compared to other bargaining units at this agency. It is disheartening to be told that management is hesitant to offer us those same protections over concerns regarding the specific phrasing of that clause. I can promise you that professional staff is just as eager to agree to a fair deal as management. We can work with them on wording. We cannot work with them on blatant disparity. Finally, management has proposed retroactive pay for professional staff beginning January 22nd. However, management has informed us that retroactive pay from January 1st is possible and, more importantly, already budgeted for if authorized by the governing board. Well, here we are to ask this board to just that. I know all of us can sympathize with having a busy schedule. It doesn't seem fair that staff be penalized because negotiations took a few weeks longer than anticipated due to scheduling delays. I know that both sides have been working diligently to come to a fair agreement as expeditiously as possible. If getting this contract done had been priority number one, I know it would have been done well before January 1st. Unfortunately, both staff and management have been busy with other important issues you'll be voting on later. Please don't punish staff for doggedly pursuing this agency's mission first and foremost. I'll leave you with this. I can confidently say I am proud of everyone in this room. I implore the governing board to advocate for us one more time. With your help, we can bring this board a contract that everyone can be proud of.
The next speaker will be Sarai Rios. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name.
Test. Good morning. My name is Brian Vlasich. I'm an air quality specialist and the vice president of South Coast Professionals Bargaining Unit. And I'm here to read a statement on behalf of a member that wished to remain anonymous. Over the past 5 years, I've observed the departure of our highly talented colleagues, many of whom hold PhDs and boast extensive research experience in search of better opportunities elsewhere. These individuals are driven by a genuine passion for our agency's mission and a desire to make lasting contributions. However, their journey with us was marred by financial insecurity and a sense of unmet respect. Please picture this. Individuals who once poured their hearts into their work now face constant battle when they visit the grocery store, a stark reminder of their financial struggles. Despite their dedication and growing efficiency, they felt undervalued and underappreciated, prompting them to seek greener pastures. In reflecting over the past 5 years, I only know a small group of colleagues due to the pandemic, and I observed some of them left. I can't help but recall the faces of those who have recently departed. One from our lab now thrives at JPL, another at Edison, and yet another at New York Research Institute. We bid farewell to a valued staff member who now contributes to research in Hawaii, while others have found new homes at CARB, Amazon, EPA, and various other consulting firms. It's easy to attribute their departure solely to financial reasons, but it's not that simple. We shared lunches, talked shop, and bonded over shared goals and aspirations. They wanted to see their projects through and make meaningful contributions to our communities. If only they felt financially secure and respected, perhaps they wouldn't have been so eager to explore other options. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I also get the 2.5 just in case? Please. Thank you. Good morning. Buenos días. Hola, Governing Board. My name is Sarai Rios. I'm an air quality engineer represented by the South Coast Professional Employees Association. Today, I stand in solidarity with my colleagues on the fight for a fair and equitable, let me say that one more time, equitable agreement on the terms of our contract. I stand in solidarity with the same colleagues that continue to serve our communities to clean the air we breathe, even when management offers us no retroactive pay back to January 1st. Governing Board, our management really, to me, feels like they pulled a power move in not offering us retroactive pay back to January 1st. Now, I respect my colleagues through and through, but what I don't respect is management's offer to us of a no Me Too clause. Governing Board, the reason I don't respect this offer of a no Me Too clause from our management is simply because it opens the door to disparities. Disparities amongst the two union groups at the AQMD, completely contradicting what it means to be equitable. To my colleagues, again, you are extremely admirable. I have nothing but respect for you. Excellence, talent, and experience is what the AQMD represents. But most importantly, it's what my colleagues in the red behind me are. It's who my colleagues tuning in on the stream are. That's who we are. Management and Governing Board, y'all love to use these words when praising us. But you know what would really make me feel acknowledged and appreciated? Is if management,
You could meet us where we are and approve these 3 items of our contract. 1, provide retroactive pay back to January 1st. 2, accept our need for a Me Too clause in our contract. And 3, follow through with an independent, unbiased salary study to see where we really stand among sister agencies. We are not asking for a bonus. We are asking for what's fair. We are asking for what's right. Gracias. Thank you.
One second. Also, can I have maybe 3 minutes? I think I'll be faster than that, but I have a tendency to talk slow.
2.5 is the most we've given.
2.5? Okay, that's fine. I'll be quick. Oh, quick question before I start. When I ask you to put the graph on screen, it's not going to cut into the time, is it? Or it will? All right, he'll be ready. Okay. Should I? Can I begin? Okay. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Gurpreet Mattu. I'm a permit engineer here and part of SCPA's negotiations team. I spoke at the last 2 board meetings, and I'm hoping 3rd time's a charm. We met with management twice this week. Unfortunately, their latest offer lacks 3 small and simple but crucial items that we need, which are full retroactivity for salary and health benefits, a Me Too clause, and a salary study that is conducted by an independent third party and has a defined implementation schedule. The salary study needs to have actionable implementation dates so salaries for employees are actually right-sized and the changes take effect within a reasonable amount of time. If the salaries for the 2 top executives at AQMD can be right-sized based on a salary study, there's no logical reason why we shouldn't do the same for all employees at the agency. Secondly, the salary study needs to be conducted by an independent third party. Why? Because unfortunately, management has shown that they are unable to accurately conduct a salary study. This past Tuesday, they presented us with a salary study conducted by HR, and that study contained misleading comparisons and incorrect data. For example, they compared the current 2023-2024 salaries at other agencies with the January 2025 Step 8 salaries at AQMD. The comparison is misleading for a few reasons. First, they're using different years for the comparison. Second, the January 2025 Step 8 salary opposed to the current salary is higher as it'll see 3 adjustments, 2 cost of living adjustments and a step increase. It also ignores any potential COLA adjustments at other agencies, which may exceed what we are receiving. A fair comparison should have been comparing current salaries at AQMD with current salaries at other agencies, like we have on that chart, which I handed out to you. There are plenty of other issues in their study. Our chart shows what current salaries are, what we have, what other agencies have, and on the other side, it shows our sources. So you can verify what we are presenting, which is something management has not done. There's a lot more I want to say, but we're close to the finish line. We just need these 3 tiny items, and we can finally come to a deal, and I can stop coming to these board meetings and taking too much time. Thank you.
Take your time, Paul. Ario Sultani, 9-year veteran, here to speak on ongoing contract negotiations. We are very close to an agreement, but there are 3 sticking points: an independent salary study, a Me Too clause, and retro pay. But first, some kudos. If you are a fan of good governance, this governing board put on a masterclass in the last meeting. After professionals made public comment about executive pay, this governing board bifurcated that agenda item and, using data from Bay Area AQMD and others, clearly articulated why that pay must be boosted. Urban, suburban, and rural Republican, Democrat, and independent members working together after robust debate and transparency. That was American democracy at its best. I would like to see the same transparency for professionals' compensation with an independent ongoing salary study, like our sister agencies in state government have. Part of that pay is benefits. The latest offer now has equal health care, equal step increases, and equal tuition reimbursement with Teamsters. Missing is an equal Me Too clause with the Teamsters, a clause the Teamsters currently have and professionals had in their last contract, a clause that adds $0 to the professional's contract. It's the right thing to do. Lastly, about retro pay. It is a kindness. A wise woman once told me, it costs nothing to be kind. First, Bettina, I was less than kind to you in the past, and I would like to apologize. Second, you're wrong. Kindness, like retro pay, can cost money. But it is money well spent to boost morale, increase retention, and stop the bleed at the South Coast AQMD. This amazing contract that Bettina and her team fought for, with equal benefits with Teamsters, putting telework in writing, boosting pay for all staff, and slowing this process down for the governing board to show its wisdom was an amazing accomplishment. I humbly ask this governing board for their wisdom and kindness again, to push us over the finish line so professionals can concentrate on what we do best, cleaning the air we breathe at the place we love. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tris Carpenter, and I am the consultant to the PEA. I don't think I need to reiterate the three things that we need in this contract. I think you've heard that enough. I am going to comment a little bit about the process. I mean, this whole thing is kind of sad. It's sad that we've had to come back here and reason with all of you because we couldn't reason with the folks that are sitting across the table from us. It's sad that once again, we're seeing these sort of power games where we had 2 sessions of 2 hours each, one on Tuesday and one on Wednesday. Most of the Tuesday session was spent with a very long presentation with faulty data that eventually came down to a rejiggering of the COLA structure. That could have been done in 10 minutes, and we could have spent the rest of the time actually negotiating. Instead, we had to come back the next day and propose reasonable guardrails, as I said. It's sad that what appears to be the will of the board, which is to end the inequities, seems to have fallen on deaf ears. It's sad that there's so little that divides us here, but we can't seem to get to a deal with the management negotiators, and that we're back here coming and talking to you. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I've seen a lot. I've been in the private sector with huge multinational corporations. I've fought massive anti-union fights in other places. I've done negotiations with many of the agencies that, some of the ones that you used in terms of the salary study for the executive increases from last month. I've negotiated with LADWP, LA City, which is a different beast than DWP, LA County Sanitation, LA County itself. I've rarely seen anything quite like this. I've only seen this sort of tactics in places that didn't want to get to a deal. You've got a very reputable management law firm working with you. I don't know what is going on here. This is just bananas. I invite any one of you to come and sit in these negotiations and see what's really happening.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Brian Speaks. I'm a 15-year veteran here at the AQMD. I'm a resident of the city of Highland. And these days, with that much experience, this kind of puts me in the minority. We've got a lot of new folks here. One thing, though, that comes with that benefit of being here that extra time is we've gone through this process a lot. We've put in the time, put in the effort through these contract negotiations. Historically, as a union, we felt that they were not keeping up with inflation. So we're glad to see this contract proposal that presents the opportunity to begin to catch up on our salaries. In the past, however, we've also seen numerous occasions of these proposals from management have gone over the deadline. And, realistically, in the past, there was never an issue with retroactive pay. It was only recently that this became something where management seemed to kind of use this as a tactic to get us to accept a deal. So we are here today. We're letting you know the three very important items to us. One of them is to stop this measure of not including retroactive pay back to January 1st, which does feel slightly punitive. The second two items, as others have discussed, are non-monetary items. One of them presents a clause in the contract which would allow us the opportunity, should some disparity present itself, to reopen discussions with management. That really doesn't cost the district anything. It's just language to be agreed to in the contract. And then the second item is the salary study. And we are asking for an impartial third party because we understand that both management and our membership would likely present biased information. So we're asking for a third party independent study to conduct this. And we would also preferably like to see this have some teeth. Thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you. And our final speaker here, Thomas.
Good morning, Chair Delgado, board members. Thank you for your time this morning. My name is Thomas Yelenich. I'm with the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association. First, I'd like to thank the board, especially Board Member Krakow and Wayne, for the opportunity to advocate with all of you in Washington next week. Bringing federal funds to address federal sources is the single best way we can address attainment issues here in Southern California. We deeply appreciate the opportunity. Looking forward, I'm very happy that staff is moving forward with a program to look at technical issues associated with the ISR. I would urge staff to schedule the subsequent meetings as soon as possible. I've had outreach from some of our members as far as the East Coast saying they're willing to travel to participate in some of these meetings. And so they look forward to participating, as I do as well. The last thing I'd like to raise to the board, Wayne and staff's attention, is a little concern regarding the format of the proposed technical working group meetings, and that's a breakout format. And while a breakout format may be fantastic for programs like AB 617, where you're collecting lots of stakeholder input on various, on the structure of possible programs, this is a technical issue. The point of these meetings are to address technical issues between experts and AQMD staff, and the meeting should be focused on discussions between the stakeholders and staff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have 7 speakers online. We're going to take their 2-minute testimony through the vice chair. And then I have some clarifying questions that I'd like to ask to Tris. I think you are probably the best representative once we've done the testimony online.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First speaker online is Julia May. Julia, go ahead, please. Got 2 minutes.
Can you give me 2.5, please?
Of course, go ahead.
Thank you. Julia May, Senior Scientist for CBE regarding the Warren Wilmington Town Lot giant oil gusher high in the air over the street that happened on January 20th, and with repeated odor episodes afterwards. You received a letter from us. Our folks live right around this facility, and we're very disappointed not to receive a report and communication from the agency other than people calling the district inspectors and getting follow-up calls. The city also investigated. They seemed to focus on water contamination, and the district inspectors, who were very helpful, nevertheless focused on odors caused. But we would have to say that a giant episode of a giant eruption of crude oil high in the air means a mix of volatile hydrocarbons from light to heavy, including toxic gases, can contain toxic sulfur compounds and other toxics. And in general, this should be considered a major air quality episode. If you take a look at the picture on our letter, it's a giant gusher over a public street. It's probably quite lucky there were heavy rains knocking out some of the liquids to the ground. Not great for stormwater. We sent you a letter asking that the district get back to a commitment that you made a few years ago after a spate of other oil industry explosions and accidents, to provide just a report on your investigation, on the root cause, on any measurements taken, and on prevention of future incidents. That was honored in the past, but then it seems to just have stopped during the pandemic. So we're asking today for you to tell your staff to reboot what you already committed to. This is a heavily impacted community of color with 5 refineries, the ports of LA and Long Beach impacts, and the most intensive oil drilling in an urban area in the country. So they just need to know what the heck happened and how we're going to prevent stuff like this in the future. This is ground zero for the toxic fuels that are also destroying the planet, but our EJ communities are on the very front line. So thank you for your help.
Thank you, Julia. Wayne, did you want to make a comment at all, briefly?
Yeah, I'm actually going to have Terrence Mann, our Deputy Executive Officer for Enforcement and Compliance. They were part of the response team, and he can describe what happened, what our response is, and what we've done since that event. So Terrence?
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We are well aware of this incident. It wasn't mischaracterized in Ms. May's description. It was an oil spill. But I do want to note that it wasn't just us out there, and that this matter involved a unified command that was stood up involving EPA, California Fish and Wildlife, and County Fire. And so the major concern at that time, this happened on the 20th, Saturday night is the point when we got out there. But the major concern at that point was oil getting into the Dominguez, reaching the Dominguez Channel, which I know Supervisor Mitchell is well aware of. We've had a lot of conversations about that, but also concerns about fisheries and impacting wildlife. And so immediately when this occurred, we did not technically integrate into the incident command because the focus was on where this oil was going. But at that point, it is one important point that we want to make to the community is when an incident command structure is set up, we can't simply go to the media or go on social media and start putting out information. We have to defer to the first responders and allow them to do their process. We remained in a support role. We've been to the site almost every day. Liquid samples were taken by those first responders. We conducted our own handheld monitoring as well. We did not identify elevated levels of VOCs or other things that would cause concern. But we've followed it very closely. We look forward to future communications with Ms. May and CBE to continue having these kind of conversations. But right, and within the last few days, we've had conversations with community members and updated them, apprised them of our progress and our investigation. We, in fact, issued a notice of violation this week as well, based on the odors. I think Ms. May referenced that. There were materials that were provided by the command structure, by state agencies. I believe there were handouts to members of the community, and that's something we'll be talking about, whether that was sufficient, whether there are ways to assist that going forward.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Terrence. Move on. Gregory O'Connor. Greg, go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I'm a resident of Romoland, California, near Menifee. I live right next door, 150 foot from the Eastern Municipal Water District. They moved off 1 million cubic yards of dirt, over 100,000 trailer loads past my home, instead of using the direct path past their facility. In getting them to use the mitigated measures, I was unsuccessful calling the office. I ended up in jail. And when I got out, I called South Coast Air Quality Management District. It was taking videos, put back in prison, and I was able to get them to stop taking their path and direct their path. Well, after everything was done, I pulled the environmental impact report and learned to find out it was particular matter 2.5. Well, your office went out there and made them put up signs, but they just leaned them against the poles without, and I learned that they have sovereign immunity. The only thing the public has is enforcement through your office. So you failed us. You told them to comply to these mitigated measures from the beginning, but you never monitored it. You never followed up to see if they started the project. This went on for 6 years and ruined my home. It's $68,000 right now for the repairs. You know, I'm unable to make the repairs, and so you let me down. I started a website, emwdn.org, and I'm going to update the information. Thank you so much for letting me talk.
Thank you, Gregory. We'll have staff look into that thank you. We'll move on to the next, and we'll, at this point, when Mr. Eder finishes, we'll cut off public comment. Harvey, go ahead, please. Harvey, you're on mute. Harvey, you're still on mute. Harvey, we'll come back to you. We'll go next to Melissa Maestas. Melissa, go ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Hello, my name is Melissa Mestis. I'm an air quality specialist and a member of the Professionals Union. I am happy that the agency created a division of diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, I wonder how much of the commitment from the agency to equity is lip service. In January, the executive officer position received a 25% raise for the year 2024. The agency is offering substantially less to staff. The raise was described as right-sizing. I request that the board stand by its commitment to equity by authorizing a written and binding commitment to right-size our salaries based on a fair analysis to be conducted by a third party. In the interest of standing by its commitment to equity, I request that the board authorize a Me Too clause for our contract similar to what the Teamsters have. In the interest of standing by its commitment to equity, I request that the board authorize the salary increases for the professionals to be effective January 1st, as it did for the Teamsters. It appears that the refusal of management to backdate our raises to January 1st is a punitive measure against the professionals for advocating for a fair contract, while management's negotiation tactics have been to draw out the negotiation process. I followed my passion by earning a PhD specializing in air pollution. I expect that I will not be wealthy, but should be able to afford to buy a house, but that is proving difficult. I plan to stay at the agency at least until I reach the 5-year mark this coming summer. Beyond that, I will weigh the list of reasons to stay against the list of reasons to leave. The way this negotiation process is being handled is adding to the list of reasons to leave. I want to do a good job for the agency, be able to afford a house, and for my colleagues and I to be treated equitably by the agency. Currently, only the first of those is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Harvey, go ahead. Harvey, you're on mute. Hit *6 to unmute. *9. *6 is 2 minutes. *9 is raise your hand, I think. Harvey's still on mute. Try *6 or *9. Harvey, we'll come back to you. So public comment is now cut off. No more public comment after those listed. Harvey, can you speak right now? Looks like you muted again. Okay, next we'll go to call-in user number 1. Call-in user number 1. Go ahead.
Hello, board members. My name is Ranji George. May I have 2.5 minutes as I have a comment on zero emission technologies?
Yes, go ahead, Ranji, please, yes.
Thank you. Just a way of introduction, my name is Ranji George. I was with Technology Advancement Office in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And I just wanted to learn, we started the battery and hydrogen revolution in the agency. And I happen to be privileged to be the leader team leader that led that effort. It was controversial what we did, absolutely going against the establishment, and we paid the penalty. Many of us paid the penalty for doing that. What I wanted to say is our board helped. I want to thank my board members of that era who helped in promoting these technologies, like Mr. Hank Reeder and Dr. Lenz and the staff, executive staff, and my personal supervisor, Dr. Alan Lloyd. So I just wanted to thank the current board members of promoting the importance of zero-emission technologies at various meetings. Thank you for that. Thank you for your efforts in publicizing it. But what I'm concerned is there's hardly any mention of hydrogen technologies when you are going into these meetings. I urge you to mention that. It's a very interesting technology with tremendous benefits to the society. Batteries have the great promise of displacing fossil fuel, but unfortunately, it's a dirty process making batteries before and then dispose. It's a very dirty process which the middle class doesn't experience. But hydrogen offsets many of those issues. And I urge the governing board members who are going to, and staff going to Washington, D.C., when they talk about technologies, I hope hydrogen is up there with the battery technologies. Last 20 years, we have been having a lot of lip service for hydrogen, but when you look at the funding for hydrogen, it's just a mere fraction of what other technologies have gotten. So I urge you for substantial funding, for requesting funding for hydrogen as well, so that they can give an alternative. So thank you, board members, for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ranji. Next is Min Su. Min, go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning, members of the board. I want to comment on union negotiations. Sorry for the non-continuity. My name is Minzu, and come next month, I will have been with the AQMD for 16 years. I currently am an air quality specialist in planning and rules and have been involved in the adoption and amendment of 3 air toxic rules and assisted in another that was just amended in December. Prior to my current position, I worked a decade as an inspector in our toxics and waste management team enforcing these types of rules. When I was hired in 2008, I remember Carol Coy, DEO at the time, greeting us as we were her last group of new hires before she was about to retire. She told us how fortunate we were to work for this agency because those that were hired didn't leave before retirement, as it was such a great place to work. It still is. For the first half of my career here at the AQMD, I think that was accurate, as I recall very few people leaving. I drew upon the experience from other divisions such as engineering and monitoring when needed. But now, however, I observe that what seems to be an increasing rate of people leaving the agency. Even new hires appear to be leaving in just a couple of years. This is my first time I've commented during a governing board meeting, and I do so now because I'm concerned about the amount of institutional knowledge that is being lost from the retirements and not being replaced, as new hires are not staying and accruing the institutional knowledge. And when we do get a replacement, we begin again at zero. On top of that, we are losing experienced staff to other APCDs and local agencies due to non-competitive salaries. I think we are close to an agreement on the MOU. I implore you, members of the board, to preserve the resources of this agency, our employees, so that we can continue to do our job, which is so important, to protect the right to breathe. I yield the remainder of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Min. Fernando Gaitan. Fernando, welcome and go ahead. Fernando, go ahead.
Morning, Fernando Gaitan with Earth Justice, and thank you so much for giving me the time. Last month, we were pleased to see staff move forward with the development of the rail and port ISRs after several months of stalled rulemaking. I'd like to point out that there's a real benefit to the format being proposed with breakout groups, and urge you not to turn the working group meetings into a closed door discussion with industry about technical issues. All stakeholders should be at these discussions, and I urge you to keep these meetings open. We continue to be concerned, however, with the slow pace with which these rules are being developed and the persistent calls from industry reps to stall both rules even further. These delays only serve to allow polluters to maintain the status quo. And the more we delay progress in finalizing these rules, the more frontline communities continue to bear the brunt of emissions from the freight industry. It's worth noting that the district recognized since at least 2007 that curbing emissions from these sources is essential. In its 2016 AQMP, the district committed to reducing up to 5.2 tons of NOx per day by implementing measures like the Port ISR that was supposed to have happened prior to 2023. So when the board hears that everything is being done to reduce emissions in the district's control, remember that these essentials tools have been on the table for several years now and have been left there. Both the port and rail ISRs have a potential to reduce more emissions than the warehouse ISR, which is already showing promising results. In an area that remains an extreme non-attainment and just months away from failing to meet yet another series of decades-old standards, creating and passing these rules should be top priority. We urge you to resist any efforts to delay these rules further and provide staff with the resources necessary to get these rules done this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. Next is Bobby Joe Chavarria. Bobby Joe, go ahead, please. Bobby Joe, you're on mute.
Unmute. There we go. Thank you. May I have 2.5 minutes, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, esteemed members of the Southern California AQMD. As a senior field organizer with the Sierra Club's Clean Transportation for All campaign and former chair of the San Gorgonio chapter of the Sierra Club, I strongly support item 11, Penske's contract for 20 level 3 charging stations. This initiative will benefit small fleets.
This is a general public comment. The speaker's obviously welcome to make comment on items that aren't on the agenda, but if you'd like to speak to item number 11, I'd like to ask you to wait until that time.
Thanks, Bobby. You can wait. Next and final speaker on general public comment is Harvey Etter. Harvey, go ahead, please.
All right. Thank you. Hello. Good morning. Sorry about that. I got a new phone. I didn't know how to sign in, so I was muted. Anyway, I'm not muted. I'm Harvey Etter. I'm speaking for myself and for the Public Solar Power Coalition. A major mess up is there was a meeting for the first time in 15 years of the Climate Committee a couple months ago. Dr. Reese gave numbers for methane from global warming potential, 1-to-1 molecule compared to carbon dioxide, of 20 to 35. Okay, these were numbers that were used for a long time by South Coast and by CARB, the 2025, the 30 numbers from Europe. Okay, I want to incorporate by reference, and we were the only ones that talked in public comment, talked 3 times. This is dead. This is dangerous. This is wrong. The real numbers are that carbon dioxide has gone to 420. All right, that was 280 in the Industrial Revolution. It's gone up 40%. Methane's gone from 700 back then to about 2,000, 1,800 now, and a quarter of the Earth is 2,500. Okay, Now, methane is actually, I'm incorporating by reference podcast number 95 of The Great Simplification with Huygens and Dr. David King, Professor Emeritus at Cambridge University since '88 in chemistry and physics, and point person for their government dealing with ours on climate for 20 years under 2 ministers. Okay, he says the real number is 120. And that's times 2 because we're 2 billion now. Okay, so that's 240 plus. All right, so, and nitrous oxide is at least 100, and that's gone and 10 times the intensity. The Arctic is melting. There's a cover-up trying to say all this other stuff, and Hanson's covering this up. And in this podcast, they asked, "What is Hanson?" He just says, "Don't talk about methane." And he had a recent paper in November talking about clouding and aerosols.
Harvey, thank you very much, and that concludes public comment. I'll now turn it over to the chair.
Thank you so much. If we could bring Tris back, I wanted to once again thank all of our employees who are active with this, the measure of trying to get this issue resolved. I'd like to speak for the board in that we were really hoping at the last meeting to come to an agreement with the union to try to resolve this because we have so much respect for all the hard work that you're all doing. And so I know that at our discussion, the intent was to try to resolve this issue and work to amend whatever issues, any animosity that happened through it. So I wanted to tell everybody here that staff was working up with our direction. And so now that we're here again this month, I wanted the board to be able to ask any clarifying questions before we go into closed session and be able to ask you directly. So I have a couple questions just so that I am fully informed before we go into closed session today. And I just wanted to ask one question first of staff. At our last month's discussion, we talked about how retroactive pay had never been approved by this agency. Is that true?
Yeah, that has been the board's direction in the past, and that was recently what was happening with one of the more recent PEA agreements. That's generally how we've been addressing that.
Can I ask you on behalf of the negotiating team, were you aware that retroactive pay had never been approved by this agency?
Actually, I don't think that that's correct.
Okay.
I believe that it has been approved in the past, and there are folks here who know the history better than I that can tell you when that happened.
If you can give us an example, that would be important for us to know. We were told by our staff that it had not been approved.
Well, for example, when I first started here in 2015, there was some contract negotiations going on, and they didn't finish up quite at the end of the year, and we received retroactive pay to January 1st, my first experience here.
Okay, I'll ask staff to check that before closed session. And so just so you are aware, that was a direction of the board. We wanted to stay consistent with what our policy was. So I don't want there to be an animosity with staff about that negotiation.
I appreciate that. The reason, though, that I said what I said about them telling us they wouldn't talk to you about it was because they did say that to me.
Oh, no, that's why I'm asking the
yeah.
questions directly. Truly, honestly, the board, with all sincerity, wanted to do whatever we could to meet all the requests that the PA had. And that was our direction at the last meeting. Do I understand that the terms changed after we gave approval for staff to go ahead and recommend approval of all of your terms from our last meeting?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
That's true. I mean, what happened here last meeting was that two executives were given very large raises based on a salary study. They were double what our highest request, more than double in the case of one of them, but at least double in the case of the other, of the lower one, of the highest request that we had made. We came back in and we'd been mostly pushing for a very high first year in order to offset the inflationary pressures of the past several years in which salaries here were losing money against, basically the buying power had decreased significantly. We came back in with those numbers again, and also looking for a salary study because again, taking some inspiration from the board, this is what we should be doing for everybody here. We should be looking at all of these things, looking at all of these positions across the board in comparison with other agencies.
And that was actually my next question. Mm-hmm. So the salary survey method that we did for the executive staff, which I agree we should do for every position, is the same one that was applied towards these positions, but that apparently is not adequate for the PEA?
It wasn't accurate in a number of ways that have been pointed out. The chart that was given to you before, or shown to you before, I'm sorry, which we can provide a digital copy of so that you'll have, the back page has tons of links to the actual numbers and job specifications.
But my question is, if we perform a third-party salary survey, it's going to take time. And this retroactive pay issue is just going to continue. So how do you reconcile that?
The proposal that we made for a salary study would have benchmarks that are basically moving into the future. There would be a benchmark for producing an RFP, choosing a vendor, completing the study. And then I think the final benchmark was to bring recommendations to you next March or April, I think. I don't remember exactly. But the idea being that those recommendations would then take effect when you've had an opportunity to look at them and to approve them.
Okay, so it wouldn't necessarily stall.
Oh, well, the retroactive wasn't on that, as much as I would love to ask for that. And they would too. That the retroactive was only for the 2024 pay increase back to January 1st, and the benefit contribution back to January 1st. And a lot of that, just allow me just to comment on that. We spent 6 months in negotiations before any movement was made on salary from the opening move. And that was designed basically to run us all up against a deadline and then say, oh, okay, well, either take it or you're going to lose retro. That's a power move that I've seen time and time again in places that were hostile and didn't want to come to a deal. If you really want to make a deal, you can start moving a lot earlier than 6 months.
Well, I take responsibility as the chair of the board for where we are. And I also take responsibility for having an agreement. And I know that we all moved very aggressively last month so that the retroactive pay would not be an issue, that we would meet all of your requests because you deserve it. But the changing of terms now feels disingenuous to me. I don't want to speak for the board. And so it does present this problem.
I think we've moved off of the, again, some sort of restructuring of the COLA to get a little bit more into the front end of the first year in order to offset the inflationary pressures. But we've had a lot of discussion. There were a lot of angry people about the way that the increases went through, particularly given the size of them and given the fact that folks, the rest of the agency was being offered 6% when other people were getting 25 and 35 is really, it's very difficult to go back into negotiations and say 6% looks great when other people did far better.
I take responsibility for that too. That was not planned well.
I appreciate that. And I don't necessarily think that was entirely your fault.
But it is my responsibility.
I hear you.
And so I want to just give the rest of the board an opportunity to ask any questions so they're fully informed before we go into closed session. Any questions from the board?
Madam Chair, I do have questions, but out of respect to the process and negotiations, I'm going to wait for the questions to ask in closed session, just for my part at least. But I do have questions, just to respect the process. Thank you.
Great.
Just a point of order with respect to today's agendized business. Was the thought, is that an option to work through our agenda and then go to closed session, just so that we, in the interest of quorum and business that we need to attend to, we don't jeopardize that?
Yeah, the only issue is if you had any clarifying questions about public comment, so that you're fully informed for the later discussion, because I believe they all have to leave. And
I just wanted to, we weren't going to closed session. When was your thinking we were going to do that?
it's going to be after the agenda items.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Travis is going to comment too. I brought up to the attorney. Usually they have discussions, especially back and forth questioning. That's unheard of in any other board meeting I've ever been in the last 25 years. You can have those meetings and we can have those discussions offline. But when it's not agendized, I feel very uncomfortable with this back and forth like this. It's not agendized for a public meeting or anything like that. And I'd rather stick with what's on the agenda.
Yeah, if you have any clarifying questions about the public comment, that's all we're asking about. Supervisor?
Just very quickly, and maybe this is a question for a response and closed comment. I'm not following here. Are we saying that what was negotiated already between staff or admin and our union has shifted from an agreement that was made? And if so, when did that shift happen?
Can I speak on that?
I think we're going to let staff answer that.
I think as has been discussed, there was a proposal that was put out by the PEA that the board considered at their January 5th closed session. We came back with a proposal based on their counter proposal, but as Tris has said, they did have a change to that proposal that had different terms from what that was. And then we continued to bargain on January 30th and 31st to see if we can move closer to an agreement, but there has been some changes along the way, but we're here now in terms of they have shown a willingness to come to agreement on some items, but still have 3 minutes.
But
I mean, still have 3 items.
was there agreement on every item back then, before the shift?
Yes. There was, all their items on the counter proposal were agreed to. There was one issue having to do with making work above 6 feet subject to hazard pay.
Not true.
All right, so obviously this is going to take a long conversation. And
I don't like being called a liar.
I'd like to get that information as to what was actually agreed to and what was not. I think that would be helpful to all of us. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you. I don't see any other board member questions, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to clarify that. I would also offer that if you want further information about this, I'd be happy to talk about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor McCallum?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of disclosures to make. For agenda item number 6, I do not have a financial interest, but I am required to identify for the record that I am the chair of the Southern California Regional Rail Authority, or Metrolink, which is involved in this item. And similarly, on item number 11, I don't have a financial interest, but I am required to identify for the record that I am the chair of the Mobile Source Air Pollution Reduction Review Committee, which is involved in this item.
Thank you, Mayor McCallum. Supervisor Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On item number 11, I do not have a financial interest, but I am required to identify for the record that I serve on the Board of Directors of the LA County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which is involved in this item.
Thank you. Supervisor Perez?
Once again, as item number 6, Madam Chair and colleagues, I do not have a financial interest, but I am identifying for the record that I am a board member of the California Resources Board, which is involved in this item.
Thank you. Supervisor Hagman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 11, I don't have financial interest, but I am identifying for the record, I'm a member of the Mobile Source Air Pollution Reduction Committee, which is involved in this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Solache?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For today's meeting on agenda 11, I will be recusing myself because of a contribution I received from Sempra, a parent Southern California gas company, within the last 12 months.
Thank you. And Bay, I believe you have a commenter on a clarification on item 6?
Yes, for item number 6, there were a number of matters that were marked with 3 stars with the notation that they were pending campaign contribution forms being submitted. Those campaign contribution disclosure forms have not yet been submitted for 5 items. So we're recommending that the board pull from consideration the votes on those 5 matters. And they are the recommended awards to Jose Abel Beltran on Table 2 for the Carl Moyer Program, Juan Manuel Magana on Table 3 for the CAP Incentive Awards, All Right Already on Table 3 for the CAP Incentive Awards, California Steel on Table 2 for the Carl Moyer Program, Charging EV Solutions, Inc., Table 4 for backup projects.
Thank you. Board Member Krakoff?
Yes, another disclosure.
This is item 6. I do not have a financial interest, but I'm required to identify for the record that I'm a board member for the California Air Resources Board, which is involved in this item.
Thank you. I don't have any requests to speak here, but we do have two members from the online public.
First speaker is Ranji George. Ranji, go ahead, please. You got 2 minutes.
Good morning, Chair and board members. My name is Ranji George. I was ex-TA Technology Advancement Office, and we initiated the battery and hydrogen technologies, their second life after decades of non-interest in these technologies. And thanks to our board and the agency, today the battery technology and hydrogen has swept the world, actually. Each corner of the world are putting billions of dollars in it. And I just wanted to talk on item number 8. First Fuel got a substantial amount of money to put light-duty hydrogen stations. There are not too many vendors in this field, unfortunately, and one of the major concerns of First Fuel is they have very little customer service. I'm sorry to say. I have friends in Irvine who have hydrogen cars, and they have faced miserable experience there. I think Mr. Nastri has a hydrogen car. Maybe he can echo it there. But there in the Irvine area, many of the fueling nozzles have created a major problem. It doesn't go into the hydrogen car, and once it goes in, it cannot be taken out. And people have spent literally 15 to 20 to 30 minutes trying to make it work, and there's a huge line of hydrogen cars waiting to be fixed. And the First Fuel's response has in many cases been very tardy. It's been hours, and I don't know why we cannot fix that. Why is this such a shabby service being provided to hydrogen? Hydrogen is struggling against the large forces of natural gas vehicle technologies and battery technologies, and the very few stations that we have encountering these serious customer service issues. And
Thank you, Ranji. Final speaker is Bobby Joe Chavarria.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. Again, I am Bobby Joe Chavarria from the Sierra Club's Clean Transportation for All campaign, strongly supporting item 11, Penske's contract for 20, which includes Penske's contract for 20 level 3 charging stations. The initiative will benefit small fleets, long haul and short haul trucks, enhancing productivity, promoting economic growth, and significantly reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I also wanted to speak on AB 617 during my public comments. Last night was a meeting in San Bernardino, Muscoy area, which championed low emission school buses rather than prioritizing an all electric school bus fleet, which is crucial to our children's health and quality of our air. Additionally, as a community member, I also urge you to address the unbearable stench from Vertex waste dump near North Fontana, which disrupts outdoor activities and impacting the well-being of residents, and which can often be detected miles away from the 10 freeway in a closed vehicle on the freeway. And finally, I would like to stand in solidarity with the workers as a member of the Progressive Workers Union, support demands for dignity and respect during these ongoing contract negotiations. Thank you for considering the best interests of our community and working families. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby Joe. We've got our last speaker is Harvey Etter. Harvey, you've got 2 minutes. Go ahead, please, Harvey. Harvey, you're muted again with that new. There you go.
Hello, am I being heard? I'm sorry about the noise here, but yes?
Yes, you are. You're figuring out that phone. Go ahead, Harvey.
Okay. I'm talking for myself in PSPC. Now, when I talked about those numbers on carbon dioxide and whatnot, this stuff, like the section on climate, and this is extremely important. And here's the thing. Methane was being compared
to focus his comments on items that are on the agenda.
Harvey, just focus items on our current agenda today. Go ahead. You can finish up, Harvey. Go on.
I'm trying to educate you all of you. Okay, 100 years is CO2 one, and then it lasts 12 years in the atmosphere. So they're comparing it over 100
This is
years.
not related to items on the consent and calendar, so we can move on.
Thank you, Bay.
Okay, is there a motion on items 1 through 25?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, and Councilmember Solache.
I was going to pull item 11 for separate vote.
Okay. So can we make that amendment to the motion?
So, yeah, agree to?
And the second, yes. All right. So that's item 1 through 25, except for number 11. Can we do a roll call?
Or just to confirm with the attorney, as long as I could just pull it, and again, I'm already recusing myself from 11.
You've already recused yourself, so that works. We don't need to take a separate vote.
Okay,
but if you
just wanted to make
prefer-
sure. Just want to make sure. Just want to triple check on the record that we're pulling 911 more on, that I already recused myself. Sorry, just want to triple check on that.
Okay.
That
All
way there's no
right.
separate needs for 2 votes. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So items 1 through 25, roll call vote.
Mayor
Rep-
Lock Dawson,
Aye.
Supervisor Joe is absent. Supervisor Hagman, Board Member Krakoff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McCallum,
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell,
Aye.
Board Member Padilla Campos,
Yes.
Supervisor Perez,
Yes.
Councilmember Rahman is absent. Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mayor Solache,
Yes, without 11.
Vice Chair Caciotti,
Yes.
and Chair Delgado.
Well, that's a yes.
Motion passes 11-0 with 2 absent and Mayor Solache recusing from item number 11.
All right. We're going to go to the public hearings for, just in case there are any quorum issues. So we'll start with Michael Kraus.
Great. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the board. I'm here to present to you our proposed amendments to our Rule 461.1 that focuses on gasoline transfer and dispensing from mobile fueling operations. Next slide, please. By way of background, we've had a rule on the books for many years now, decades, as a matter of fact, 461, and that regulates gasoline dispensing into motor vehicles. It also regulates what we call mobile fuelers, which is basically a fuel tank on a truck that cruises around and then supplies to motor vehicles. We peeled that off recently in 2022 for a new rule, 461.1, and that would then focus in on the mobile fueling operations of gasoline into motor vehicles. But we expanded that to also include things like containers or equipment as well, and then provided specific provisions focused on that type of operation. Next slide, please. However, in the midst of doing that and implementing the rule, we discovered that the definition that we had in 461.1 was a broad enough definition that basically would bring in aviation gasoline. And that's the type of, we call avgas, and that's the type of gasoline that would be used to fuel small aircraft. So in order to be consistent, we're coming back to the board to make a clarification correction in the rule to make sure that we're going back to the original intent of the rule. Next slide, please. So, okay, all right. So when we brought this before the committee, the Stationary Source Committee, there was an interesting question that was raised about the regulation for aviation gasoline. So we wanted to come back and really highlight to the board that that aviation gasoline is being regulated. So it's not that we are, pulling this out from this particular rule and then ignoring it. As a matter of fact, when the aviation gas fuelers come to the agency to get permitted, they are then reviewed for that in that permit process for an NSR or new source review that involves potential applicability for best available control technology, offsets, modeling, what have you. In addition, it's evaluated for its criteria pollutant as well as its toxic air contaminants. And I know that it was also raised before about lead. And yes, if there's potential lead components from that in that operation to be evaluated. Next slide, please. So we're here to ask to determine that this particular proposed amendment is exempt from California Environmental Quality Act or CEQA and to amend the rule.
Any questions from the board?
Sorry, just one question. I'm just wondering why this was brought up. Did someone in particular bring this up to the agency for review?
Yes, during the permitting process, there was a small airfield that was doing this type of operation. And then we recognized that the provisions, it would fall under that the 461.1, those provisions couldn't be met because they were designed for gasoline dispensing into motor vehicles.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, no other questions? All right, let's open the public hearing. Is there anybody here who would like to speak on item 28? Everybody's getting up in a frenzy, but I think we're okay. Anybody online?
No one online?
All right, we'll close the public hearing.
I'll move it. Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mayor Locke Dawson,
Aye.
Supervisor Joe is absent. Supervisor Hagman,
Hagman, aye.
Board Member Krakow,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McCallum,
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell,
Aye.
Board Member Padilla Campos,
Yes.
Supervisor Perez is absent. Councilmember Rahman is absent. Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes?
Mayor Solache,
Yes.
Vice Chair Caciotti,
Yes.
and Chair Delgado.
Yes.
Motion passes 10-0, 3 absent.
Thank you. That brings us to item 29. Do we have a staff presentation?
Mike.
Good morning, Chair Delgado and members of the board. My name is Bhaskar Chanson, and I'll be going through this presentation on proposed update to the BAC guidelines. Next slide. So what is BACT? BACT is the most stringent emission control limit or limitation that's for a class and category of equipment that is either achieved in practice, is in the SIP plan, or is technologically feasible. So BAC guidelines are periodically updated. The technology changes over time. Emission limits get lower. Control technology gets better and more stringent. So we have to keep our BAC guidelines updated. That's what we are doing as part of this proposed BAC update to our BAC guidelines. We'll be including some updates, some new categories. And BAC guidelines, we have about 300 sources, commonly permitted sources in our BAC guidelines. So this helps the regulated community and our engineers, as a reference point to see what BACT is and how to apply that. Next slide. So BACT is a major element of our new source review program, the NSR. On all permit applications that we get for new and modified sources, if there is an emission increase of more than a pound of either the non-attainment air contaminants, ozone depleters, or ammonia compounds, BACT is triggered. BACT is triggered for us at 1 pound a day. Other districts have higher limits. Around California, I've seen limits of 5 pounds per day and 10 pounds per day also, but we have always had 1 pound per day as our BACT limit. And BACT only applies to new or modified sources. Doesn't apply to the existing sources. Next slide. So our BACT guidelines are generally divided into 4 sections. One is the overview. The second section is the Part B, which is for the major source BACT, which is also called LAIR, the lowest achievable emission rate. And then in Part D of our guidelines, that's where we have non-major or minor sources. And then we have Part E, where we have PSD for greenhouse gases. Some differences between major and minor sources. Major source, the BACT applies at the time that we issue the permit. And as far as the cost effectiveness is concerned, for major sources, we don't do cost effectiveness analysis. But for minor sources, which is under the health and safety code, it requires us to do cost effectiveness analysis. The BACT applies when the permit application is deemed complete, and it requires a board approval, and we have to go through the process, which is in the next slide. Next slide. So how do we update the BACT guidelines? Typically, we have what we call the SRC meetings, Scientific Review Committee. The state law requires us to have a SRC Scientific Review Committee, which consists of 20 members from industry, from consultants, trade organizations, from universities. They're all part of our SRC committee, and we have periodic meeting with them whenever we are proposing new WAC. We have meetings with them. These are public meetings. Public can attend them. They can comment on those. So we take those to the committee. We let them comment. We let them look at our WAC guidelines, express their concerns, and then we address those concerns. Based on that, we make the adjustments. And we have a 30-day public comment period also. So once all that is done, then we go to the Station Resource Committee, which we went on January 17th, and now we are at the board to get the guidelines approved. Next slide. So as part of this update, this table shows all the updates that we are doing to Part B of the guidelines. These are in our AQMD permit, South Coast AQMD permits. It has already been in the permit. They are now achieved in practice, so we are listing them. Most of them are new listing, but there is one listing that's updating some of the current back guidelines. And that was the one that some of the members had expressed concern on. WESPA had expressed concern on this. It doesn't directly affect the backlisting that we are doing, but we are working with the WESPA and their members to address their concerns. Next slide. So this slide shows the Part B, Section 2, which are the back guidelines that were not in our permits, but we look at other permits also from across this state, across this nation. And if there was anything more stringent than our back guideline, we would incorporate those, and that's in Section 2 of Part B of our back guideline. And finally, in Part D, there is one listing that we are incorporating. That's for the crumb rubber and asphalt oil blending system. That's for VOC control greater than 90%. Next slide. So in summary, we are updating or adding 8 new listings to Part B of our back guidelines for major source backed. Part D, we are adding 1 more listing. And we are updating the cost effectiveness analysis, incremental cost effectiveness analysis, because we routinely update those for CPI. So whenever we update the back guidelines, we update the cost effectiveness numbers also. And there are other administrative updates. Next slide. So the recommended action today is to determine that the proposed amendment of the back guidelines are exempt from requirements of CEQA and approve the proposed amendments of the back guideline. With that, I conclude my presentation. I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Nope. Okay. I don't have any. I'll open the public hearing. Are there any speakers here to speak on item 29? There's no one signed up. Is there anyone online? There are some speakers online.
Looks like we have. Madam Chair, looks like we have 3 speakers online on this issue. You have 2 minutes. We'll start with Harvey Etter. Harvey, go ahead, please. Focus on this issue. Back guidelines.
Hello, am I being heard? Yes.
Yeah, Harvey, go ahead, please.
Okay, yeah. I'm in a place that's quieter, but my impression is that I'm confused what the hearing is, and I can't ask questions, and I cannot look at it because the stuff is not on screen, and that's against the Brown Act. I'm challenging the whole process here because on the phone it's been this way at least since COVID. There's nothing. We cannot see anything, and I can't see it, and I can't comment on it because I don't know what the hell it is about.
Comments on this, please make them. If not, we're going to move on. Thank you.
Harvey, can you make any comments on this issue? Back guidelines, go ahead.
Okay, I want to say for the record, there's tele-meetings. We did not get involved in those. That the contingency measures, what we put in the solar new deal instead of the back.
Move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Next speaker is call-in user 2. Go ahead and call in user 2.
Hello, board members. This is Ranji George. I was an ex-DA member. And I'm really concerned that the board is focused only on air pollution and getting that. I understand that's the main focus. I am trying to get to know why methane is not included in BACT. BACT, when we were there, we were told methane has no impact on air pollution or it's not reactive. But now, given the climate change awareness, and Mr. Eder pointed out the tremendous impact methane has on the climate change. I mean, it's such a great, one of the worst pollutants out there, and yet there's hardly any mention of methane under BACT guidelines. So I urge you, given that Biden administration and the world is moving towards addressing climate change and the destabilization of methane versus contributing to that change, please, with the urgency, I urge you to look into how to include methane in BACT. And this is, I don't think that's probably possible because many of the board members, I'm sorry to hear, they get so much contributions from the gas industry that, you know, they may not take the initiative to do it. But I urge you to set aside that prejudices and move to control methane. And I echo Mr. Avi's serious concern on methane, and we should have more solar, some substantial effort into solar and other zero-emission technologies for stationary and mobile. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. And finally, we have Gregory O'Connor is our last public speaker on this item. Go ahead, Greg.
Yes, thank you. You know, it is a little confusing. The best available techniques or whatever BACT stands for, you make suggestions that don't stand as requirements to proposals that might or might not happen. It sounds like a lot of work. And then in the end, when someone doesn't do what they're supposed to or doesn't get the results they're supposed to, there's endless litigation to say something wasn't adhered to. I'm in the middle of this. You know, I'm the people that you guys have for so long protected. I mean, California is beautiful now compared to when I moved here from New Jersey in '85. And I recognize that it was all the efforts of the employees and the people here, but this is ridiculous that, you know, all these intelligent people set up these standards and requirements and best, and then in the end, your office does nothing to hold sovereign immunity departments. And I mean, I had to stop using my dump truck.
So I'd encourage
You know, okay,
to focus back on this specific item. Thank you.
Go on, Greg. Keep it focused on this item. Go ahead. Greg, you can finish up if you focus on this item. You're muted.
Unmute.
Yep, you're
Am I
muted.
back on?
We can hear you. Go ahead. Finish up.
Okay. All right. You know, you want Environmental Qualities Act to have review of this or not. I don't think it really matters because all the efforts you guys put into these the Environmental Qualities Act means absolutely nothing, as proven by the fact that you don't go in the end and make sure that these sovereign immunity municipalities remain compliant to it. I mean, down the end of my street, there's a truck that doesn't even meet smog standards for 2010. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. That'll conclude our public comment on this item. Turning it back to the chair.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing.
I'll move it.
Okay.
Moved in second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Lock Dawson,
Aye.
Supervisor Joe is absent. Supervisor Hagman,
Hagman, aye.
Board Member Krakow,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McCowan,
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell,
Yes.
Board Member Padilla Campos,
Yes.
Supervisor Perez is absent. Councilmember Rahman is absent. Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mayor Solache,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cacchiotti,
Yes.
and Chair Delgado.
Yes.
Motion passes 10-0, 3 absent.
Thank you so much. That brings us back to item 27, the permitting presentation. And if we could target to get to closed session no later than 11:15, that'd be great.
But this is an important issue, so we really need to cover it.
Oh, yeah, it's one of my priority issues. It's just that we are losing quorum at a certain time.
I will do my best to keep it moving along. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Board members. Jason Aspel, Deputy Executive Officer over Engineering and Permitting, be providing a status update on our permitting enhancement program. Next slide, please. In April of last year, Chair introduced the Permitting Enhancement Program, or PEP, with the objective of modernizing the permitting system, improving permit processing times, and reducing the backlog. In August, staff presented a comprehensive work plan to be implemented over the next 2 years. There are 21 enhancements with either 12-month or 24 months targets. Today, we are coming back to the board to provide the requested 6-month status report to present our progress. Next slide, please. So there are 5 main enhancement elements to rebuild and modernize the permitting division. The first 2 focus on the immediate staffing shortage issues we face coming out of the pandemic. The division had a vacancy rate of 20%, with a staff engineer vacancy rate peaking at 25%. Next is a modernization of a paper-based permitting system, as well as the redesign of many of the website elements used by permit applicants and the general public, so they will be more accessible, logical, and provide clear information. Lastly, staff is working on multiple streamlining and efficiency improvements to the permitting process. Next slide, please. So first, I want to report on our timely permit processing goals. Staff is on target with our annual goal thus far, and we have met the quarterly targets. 50% of our permitting actions do occur within the first month of being deemed complete. Most of these are simple applications and are acted on very quickly. To answer the question of when the overall situation gets better, we are already seeing the positive impacts of new staff, and we anticipate to see that improvement in overall production in the second half of this year. We've already acted on 150 aged applications in the last 6 months. That's double as compared to the same period 2 years ago. This is going to be an ongoing challenge for us. These are complex projects that are aged, but we're utilizing any and all resources we can to try and get through this as expeditiously as possible.
Just one quick question.
Absolutely.
The term most, is that the 70% completion rate?
So the 70% completion rate is what we have gotten done in this quarter.
Okay.
When I discuss most, it is in any given week, day. Most of those go out quickly. This is our primary focus now that we have our staffing in place. Some of these do involve permit denials due to non-compliance or CEQA issues. And we are seeing the common delays with our permit applications, such as incomplete applications, but we are taking actions under PEP to try and fix these issues. Next slide, please. So we did hear the concerns about permitting timelines of the waste management team, and we want to address those issues here. Staff continues to work very closely with the waste management industry, and we're actively fixing that situation. We've already taken several actions, and we have several more in progress. This team is responsible for some of our most complex facilities. Wastewater facilities like Hyperion, landfills such as Chiquita Canyon, involving toxic odorous emissions with many ongoing investigations. If you look at these investigations, engineering staff supports our inspectors in the field in the enforcement division, and engineering solutions are needed to resolve many of these issues. For Hyperion alone, multiple engineering staff have spent hundreds of hours on the problems at that facilities instead of working on permits for other facilities. And this is in addition to the days and weeks spent in hearing board, providing testimony, and providing support for other functions such as rulemaking. So there's a lot more on engineering's plate than just permitting. So let's discuss how we're going to solve these issues. We've already reorganized the team. We've taken away workload that is non-waste management related away from the team. And we're going to double the review staff in the team from where it was 2 years ago. From our data and accounts from staff, the review stage is our biggest bottleneck in this team. At this review stage, we've filled 3 senior engineer vacancies in July. We're filling the supervisor position, and we're going to add a 3rd supervisor position. We hope to have this in place within the month. This will give the team the flexibility to be able to respond to the emergencies like we have at Chiquita and still keep up their production and get permits out. We're also utilizing contractors that have been assigned waste management projects, and we're going to seek additional contracting assistance to help this team. And we hope to have this done in 6 months. We'll immediately cross-train our special projects team, which we just created, to take on some of this workload as well. So in response to comments received in our permit streamlining task force, we will be developing our task force agendas for more collaboration, providing opportunities for more discussion and feedback from public and the industry, as well as engaging in some waste management focused issues. We do want to hear what they say. We did ask for their input for the development of PEP, and these communications happen outside of task force as well, but we're going to be taking these extra steps to make sure they happen. So just to repeat, there will be more review staff, more contractors, support through cross-training, and then a better engagement with industry and the public. And all of these are upcoming or actions in progress to help this team catch up and sustain production. Next slide, please.
I might, Madam Chair. I was told by the waste management people that some of their permits have been behind schedule by about 3 years. Is that a true statement?
It's very, there are some that are 3 years for varying complications. Technical issues from CEQA down to staffing. For this team, when I just mentioned the new, or I'll be getting into the new staffing, we just added 9 new staff last year. That was 9 seats that weren't filled, and then we had 4 very untimely departures from this team at the senior and supervisory level that approves those. So all of these have led to this issue. There are age projects, and that's why we're focusing as a division on age projects, but specifically for this team to get them the help they need.
So the new team will focus their efforts on the ones that are really old and get those out quickly, or try to.
Good question,
and then
Mayor.
keep the backlog from backing up, right?
Yes, so that's what we're going to strategize with when we have the new supervisor in place, but we're thinking of the initial strategies is hitting this from both ends, is get the ones that are coming in out the door to prevent them from becoming old, and then having a very focused effort on those aged applications that are awaiting action from us so they can proceed.
Supervisor Mitchell has a question.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the work that's gone into this. One question, well, 2 questions I have. First of all, it's my understanding that the permitting process in other air districts is much less complicated. Is there anything that we can learn from other districts that we could incorporate to simplify our process?
First off, thank you. In the development of PEP, we did reach out to other districts, EPA, asking for those streamlining, those ideas. We did incorporate some of them into PEP, and they're in progress. At the core of it, we are all trying to mirror federal NSR for our major sources. So there are limitations with EPA there, and we do have extreme non-attainment issues, which is why we have very stringent standards. From what we've seen from our data, with the staff we have in place, if we can get this through and get those staff levels that are normal production levels, it should fix itself. But we need to handhold this one and make sure it gets through.
Right.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the new staff, and also in in all things. It's going to take the new staff time to get on board, to be fully trained, so they are operating at a high level of efficiency as seasoned staff do. So even with the addition of new staff, I know that we shouldn't expect an overnight turnaround just as your new staff are trained. Second quick question. I held a meeting, I was requested to have, they requested a meeting and we met this past week, Clean Water SoCal. And they had this idea about what impact it would have if the permit streamline committee were to be board chaired. I got the impression from that conversation, they thought that it would really kind of elevate the work of the committee. They expressed a desire to have more of a shared agenda-making process. They could then engage in more active problem-solving during that time versus kind of being presented to. I'm sure you've heard from them as well, any of their ideas around how to expedite this process more? Have you taken into consideration? Have you found those useful?
Do you want to take, or I'll take the back part maybe, but I'll ask about the task force. Yes, we did hear those concerns, and that's what I was mentioning as far as collaborating with those agendas to make sure we have those discussion items. We do have them. We did have an item last June where we asked for input on development of this plan. But there's room for more. I think as you look at the history of this task force, it did get away from where it once was and some of the discussions that were there. And we're going to look to talk to our task force members and reincorporate some of those ideas, those discussions where we sit down about what goes into permits. So there's understanding from both sides.
Supervisor, and if I could add, I believe the measures that Jason's talking about will help. There are a couple of things that we can do to increase the exposure of the committee to the board. One is a regular reporting item within the weekly report. So that would have the attention of the board. As far as a board chaired committee, board members are always free to attend the committee. If the board would like to have a designated representative to the committee, of course we will accommodate that and work with the board on that. But I'm hopeful that the reporting on a weekly basis, and I know Jason's cringing, will have a good effect in terms of keeping you all apprised and keeping us accountable. So I hope that's acceptable.
And I just raised it because I know we're hearing it because it was of importance to our chair and other committee members. So that's why I just thought I would raise it. And if you think the steps that you're taking will not only shorten the permitting process, but timetable, but also allow us to be more engaged, then I'm certainly fine with that. Thank you.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so again, appreciate your leadership and continue to put a laser focus on this critical issue. I think the team's efforts, thank you, staff, the weekly reporting, that's appreciated. Just a few questions and then a comment. Do we have any clarity on a new milestone timelines regarding permitting and how close we are now to that 6-month time frame as a general goal, being able to see again where we are now in respect to a general timeline? What have we been able to achieve any improvement in since the last time we had this brought forth? Just trying to get an appreciation of progress and how much we're getting towards those goals of a 6-month timeline. And then just with respect to the presentation slide and comments made by my colleagues, including the supervisor just a moment ago, the Clean Water SoCal and other participants in the task force, being able to lean into some of their recommendations, making it more of a discussion of best practices, what else can be done, maybe some less reporting, and see about what can be done, again, to bring some tangible ideas of how we can streamline the process. I'd be interested in seeing what new ideas are coming from these upcoming discussions in a tangible way. The idea that in some cases it's 3 years for permitting on wastewater services, considering the public health implications there, I think we all would like to see us avoid anything anywhere near the term years. So again, that's probably the exception to the rule, but again, that really struck me as concerning. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Hagman, and then I'm
Oh, I just
gonna.
had there was a quick question in there though.
Okay.
Sorry.
And then just, I know he still has like 4 more slides too, so I'll let you, go ahead and finish your.
I'll try and address this one quickly. So as far as progress, it will be coming in the slides, but the progress from the last update has been the staffing, and I'll speak to that. So we onboarded them September, October. They've been in training. They're getting the new work now. So that is why we're projecting probably in the next 6 months, we're going to start to see the impact of that. All of these staff members are still on probation. We're getting them to learn their jobs. The goals were set on our current staffing levels. And we're going to look at this next year. Whenever we set our goals, it's based on that situation. And hopefully we get our feet under us now within the next year. And I think by the end of the year, we're really going to start to see the benefits.
If I could, the key criteria that I look at are the backlog number total, and we try to keep that down. There's another number that we have. I really dislike it because I don't think it adequately describes the work that the team does, and that's the 70% done within 6 months of the application. As you heard Jason say, many of the permits we complete within 30, 40 days. So we need to find a better way to describe that metric. And to the point that's been raised about keeping the attention and focus, one of the things that we also talked about was going to Mayor McCallum and Stationary Source Committee and also making this a regular agenda item so that the mayor, with his experience and with the experience of the Stationary Source Committee, we can keep a close track on that as well. I think that would address many of the concerns that you've all heard today.
Supervisor Hagman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick point, and I love all the suggestions you guys are making. Great job. What I always try to look for is trends, over a period of time. Once you make a focus on a goal, it takes a while to get the operation going. It takes a while to get employees trained. And instead of, I don't want to burden you with staff reports every week to get out, or a whole other committee or subcommittees or report outs. If there's just a dashboard you could put in on these different categories, those different metrics, and then we can review on those and respond to trends. If we all of a sudden see a spike in delay or whatever, then we know that's something we can ask you about and say, what's the issue? But it could be all those categories you brought up. Those metrics are just easy to do that way, and it's transparent.
And we do have a dashboard, and we'll be happy to share that with you, Supervisor.
Board Member Krakow?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I too really appreciate you bringing this to us and appreciate the comments of the different board members. And one of the things that I have noticed is the metric that we have, this 180-day metric. I agree, I'm not sure it is the right metric, because on the one hand, it doesn't account for the things that are processed much quicker, but I'm also concerned it doesn't account for the things that are not processed and are much more complicated. So my recollection is that this metric has sort of come up as part of our budget discussions last year. I know that now this is a more focused analysis and process we're going through, but I do think it also should include some analysis of a metric that we think properly characterizes how we're doing, given all the challenges you have. I'm not sure I'd want to be in your shoes up there, Jason, given the challenges we have with staffing, the immense amount of work we have with the 2 landfills, with Hyperion. I really don't envy you. And I want to thank you and your staff and all of the folks that came today, because we just can't do this without you. We're trying to give you the resources, compensation, the focus on hiring to fill these gaps. So wanted to be sure to say that. But I do think that let's put our heads together and figure out a metric that we all can understand that really gives us a true picture of how we're doing on the easier permits and on the more difficult ones.
Okay, I think we should let you finish your presentation and then we can come back to further comments.
All right, thank you. That age metric is something we're getting back to now that we have staff. It's hard to commit to with new staff, but thank you very much. Several streamlining items are already in progress, such as our special projects team to focus on aged and complex projects. Based on feedback from industry, we are going to be initiating industry-focused listening sessions to hear recommendations from industry, as we spoke about, and make sure we're considering all measures. Our contractors are in place. We are developing additional contracts. For now, our retirees are approved through June, and we want to explore securing their services for longer through contracts as well. More guidance documents and advisories will be developed to make our process clearer and more transparent for permit applicants, to know what to expect from our permitting process with the interest of reducing the time it takes to get those permits out. Next slide, please. Thank you. So staffing is our first huge success under PEP thus far. We are trying to fill all engineer vacancies and set out to achieve a target of 10% after being at the peak of over 20% for the division last year. We achieved and surpassed this target, and we did it ahead of schedule. Our division vacancy rate is now 9%. For staff level engineers, the vacancy rate peaked at 25%. That is now down to less than 6%. We only have 5 vacancies out of the 94 staff level engineer positions. We hired or promoted 60 staff members since the beginning of last year, including 39 new staff level engineers, most of them in the second half of 2023. We are continuing to make this a priority to make sure we have staff level in place. We're also keeping our retiree as contractors and our other contractors to make sure they continue to assist us. But we've hit the staffing element very hard, and we were successful. And now we have some new, eager, hungry engineers on board to help us out. Next slide, please. So now we have all these new engineers on board. We have started a massive training effort while trying to maintain our production of permits. Each first-line supervisor has 3 new hires reporting to them on average. So we're staging our training program. We're adding more technical supervisory training just to try and keep this thing moving. We're utilizing outside resources where we can. Been coordinating with industry to have on-site orientation and training for complex processes. And we're looking for all opportunities. We're going to be requesting to increase our proposed training budget coming up to make sure we can continue to shorten this learning curve. Next slide, please. So our transparency actions will improve the clarity of our permitting process. The more we establish these clear expectations coming into a transparent permitting process, the more efficiencies will be realized. We did recently release 2 documents, but it was in the interest of communicating to industry where there's ongoing deficiencies in permit applications, but then also giving staff more tools to simplify their process and give them templates. We are also going to seek out more feedback from industry on these documents. But to facilitate this, since we didn't have a mechanism, we're starting a new permitting sign-up list. We're going to be announcing these advisories, meetings, soliciting feedback through this mechanism. So we're encouraging everybody to sign up for this. Next slide, please. So we've also made great progress in our modernization efforts with much more to come. The health risk assessment, or HRA, is a very time-consuming, complex part of our process. Staff has developed a new tool that will be available to both the public and staff that will hopefully get away from the rigidity of the current complex process, and then hopefully promote information sharing and reduce permitting times by weeks in some cases. So we received good input from our task force members, and we're going to be looking for beta test volunteers to further improve this product, and we expect full launch later this year. We've also automated our process where we can. We have almost 20 such automated application modules. We just launched the latest automated module for emergency engines. For certain small certified engines, a permit applicant can log in, enter their equipment, site information, pay fees, and receive the registration permit immediately. These modules are now providing the foundation and the lessons that we're now going to build our paperless permit application system. And it's this sign of the modernizations we're working on right now, and we'll be reporting to the board in our future updates. So, next slide. Several items are in progress under PEP, and we will present many of our key items in about 6 months. So after this 6 months, we do have successes, but we still have several challenges ahead of us that will take time. But we're seeking all available resources and information to try to resolve this situation. We're going to collaborate with our task force agendas with our members, and meetings will be held in the interim months. And we look forward to hearing from industry and the public with their input, ideas, and feedback on permitting and PEP as well. We do see the light at the end of this tunnel. Things are getting better. Staffing has been a key part of this, and we're hoping to see that as we move through this year and these new engineers really start to help us out. So that concludes our initial 6-month update for PEP. Thank you very much, and I can answer any more questions I'm sure you may have.
Thank you, John, for everything that you've done. That's an amazing accomplishment thus far. My main worry is probably consistent with what everybody shared so far, is that you have such a new team on some of these very complicated matters. So I continue to be supportive if you need to hire outside consulting staff to, in this next year, work on the more complicated matters. If there's a budget impact, we're supportive of that. I think training and getting the new team acquainted with what you do is the highest priority right now. So I just remain concerned about the very complicated issues that you talked about. But thank you for all your hard work. Is there any other questions? I know we have public comment on this as well.
Madam Chair, just wanted to say I appreciate your leadership on this area and staff's response to this item, and I look forward to improvements ongoing. And I think you've got a good plan put together in keeping us informed on the backlog and how we're doing in each of these areas. I think would be very important. Thank you.
I'm sorry that I called you John.
It's okay.
I should have said Jason. Any other comments, questions? There are 2 speakers here. Nope. Okay, so I'll bring the speakers up. We have Curtis Coleman, followed by David Rothbard.
There we go. Good morning. I'm David Rothbard. I represent Clean Water SoCal, where our members are the wastewater treatment plants in Southern California. First, thank you very much for the discussion. Thank you, Jason. You do a great job. We're not picking on you. We're trying to help you, believe it or not. So we're here to help out. One thing I wanted to highlight is permit backlog has not been a new issue. Years ago, we had a permit backlog, and the same type of response came of, let's look at metrics. Let's look at how long it takes for a permit to be issued. And I want to just step back and say, that's kind of how we got to a dilemma we have right now. We want to look at how to get the permits out quicker, how to streamline the process. We have a permit streamlining task force that is available to help out. We have experts to say, here are things we could do to help. And the problem we've had is we've shifted to staff presenting to this group rather than the group providing solutions. What we would like to do is avoid the following. When my members apply for a permit,
You'd think with all these complex rules and regulations, we spend so much time going through them, we would walk in and know what permits we get. We know the conditions we get. That's not the case. Right now, when we walk in with a permit application, it turns into a negotiation, haggling over permit conditions. And that's what this permit streamlining task force could help with, is come up with consistency, with policies, bring inconsistencies back to Jason and say, here's things we need to work on to help you be more efficient, have staff be more efficient. So what we'd like to do is revisit the permit streamlining task force, have quarterly meetings, I'm sorry, Jason, and have this new vision of doing this. And if a board member would be kind enough to sit in, it does change the dynamic on that interaction, and we think it'd be more productive. That's why we're recommending it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Curtis Coleman, Executive Director of the Southern California Air Quality Alliance, which is an industry trade association. First of all, I want to thank the board and especially Chair Delgado for her efforts in improving the rapidity of getting permits out the door and streamlining the process. As you know, we have been supportive of the board during budget discussions in the past of providing the necessary resources to the engineering group to improve the permit process and streamline things and make the permit process work better. We want to continue doing that. We think that there are things that the permit streamlining task force can do if it's slightly reworked, and I want to endorse David Rothbart's suggestions here. We would like to see that meetings quarterly, if not more often, but I know quarterly, right now they're 6 months usually, but I think quarterly would allow us all to have a better handle on things. We'd like the meetings to be more of a problem-solving focus and less of a staff reporting session. And we think at least one governing board member, it would be helpful if one governing board member could attend either in person or virtually at those meetings. We stand, while I am not personally a member of the task force, I do generally participate either virtually or come out to the district for them. But one of our members, Boeing, does have a representative on the task force. So we look forward to working with you and with the staff, and I hope you.
We have two people online. We'll start with Steve Jepson from Clean Water SoCal. You have 2 minutes, Steve.
Hi, this is Steve Jepson, Executive Director for Clean Water SoCal. Thank you, Chair Delgado and board members for the opportunity to comment today. First off, I want to echo the comments from Curtis Coleman and David Rothbart, who is the Air Quality Chair for Clean Water SoCal. Clean Water SoCal represents 80 public water wastewater agencies in Southern California, most of which are in the South Coast Air Quality Management District boundaries. As public agencies, we must follow the Public Contract Code. The excessively long permit times for what are sometimes routine facilities as part of a wastewater treatment operation proposes big challenges in our public bidding process and award process. And it's really awkward for us to work around these extreme permit timelines. That's why this is such an important issue to us. So I know you've got important negotiations coming up with staff, and I don't want to take too much time. So I just want to echo the need for more regular quarterly meetings with a joint team prepared agenda with stakeholders and staff, and board participation would be great. So thank you for the opportunity to comment today, and I look forward to making progress on this important issue. And I do want to also echo David's comment that Jason and his staff, as well as all of the South Coast staff, are truly professional and accessible, and we appreciate working with them. So thank you for the opportunity to comment today. Bye.
Hey, Steve, our final speaker is Bill Lamar. Bill, go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Bill Lamar. I'm the Executive Director of the California Alliance of Small Business Associations and a member of the Permit Streamlining Task Force. My remarks are in support of your last three speakers, while at the same time acknowledging the good work that the permitting and engineering team has done toward addressing the permit backlog problem that resulted from prolonged staffing shortages. I believe that for staff to overcome current and future permit processing failures, their permit enhancement program must make some structural changes to include holding task force meetings at least quarterly and restructuring the meetings where members are merely listening to staff presentations involving all types of permits and replace them with interactive problem-solving focused meetings so that staff can better utilize the rich experience and expertise of the members. Finally, I support the previous recommendations that the task force subcommittee be chaired by a governing board member rather than having them read periodic reports. I believe that had a board member presided over these meetings in the past, it is doubtful that the backlog would have been allowed to persist for as long as it did, because steps would have been taken much earlier to avert a backlog. Thank you for allowing me to comment.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation, and we're there to support you along the rest of the timeline.
I just wanted to clarify, Madam Chair, were we giving direction for these, or the meeting's going to be quarterly? What are we doing on that? I heard that bantered about a bit. So are we committing to that?
We will hold quarterly meetings. We were planning to. We just had one last week. So that gives us plenty of time to fit these in for the rest of the year. In addition to the
Thanks for
other
the clarity on that.
meetings I mentioned. Yes.
And for the next year, I will sit on them. I did the last, and I think it's important. And then as we collectively figure out this process, then we can decide if a board member will permanently sit on it or what it becomes. So I don't think we're ready to make that recommendation, but I will volunteer to be on those. All right, thank you. With that, Bay, if you can take us out to closed session.
Yes. It is necessary for the board to recess to closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9A and 54956.9D1 to confer with its counsel regarding pending litigation which has been initiated formally, to which the South Coast AQMD is a party. The action is South Coast AQMD v. EPA, U.S. District Court for the Central District of California, case number 223 CB-02646. It is also necessary for the board to recess to closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9A and 54956.9D4 to consider initiation of litigation in one case. It is also necessary to recess to closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 to confer with labor negotiators, agency designated representative A. John Olvera, Deputy Executive Officer, Administrative and Human Resources, employee organization Teamsters Local 911, and South Coast AQMD Professional Employees Association, and unrepresented employees, Executive Officer, General Counsel, designated deputies, and management and confidential employees. A report of any reportable actions taken in closed session will be provided to the clerk of the board. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.